So it's been a few weeks since I've done a in the news episode, and I came across an article that was called What's Behind the Explosion of the Apprenticeship Program in Early Childhood Education. And it was in my inbox because I am a member of the Rhode Island branch of NACE. And I thought it was pretty cool. And I started reading it. This is about my state. And I know these ladies. So I was like, let me get them on the show so we could talk about it. So, welcome to another episode of the Childcare Director's Chair podcast. I'm your host, Erica Sacosio. And today we are going to shine a spotlight on a game-changing development, the rapid expansion of apprenticeship programs across the U.S. And, as a leader, you may have wondered how these apprenticeship programs are transforming the landscape of early childhood education. And today we're going to talk and learn a little bit about what they're doing here in Rhode Island and their groundbreaking approach that's setting new standards for workforce development. We're going to talk about how these programs are tackling those pressing staff shortages, paving the way for new careers, and providing crucial support for educators at every stage of their career, which I think is amazing. Joining us today to share their insights is Marino Russo and Amber Minjot. But we're going to have a good time and we're just going to kind of talk a little bit about it. So we hope that you will stay tuned for our conversation because it really could help change the way that you think about workforce and workforce development for your child care center. So welcome to the show, ladies.
Thank you.
So Marino, can you tell folks just a little bit about yourself and how you came into this work?
Absolutely. So I am the assistant director at the Rhode Island Association for the Education of Young Children, and our team here with Amber oversees or manages a variety of workforce development projects for our workforce in Rhode Island here. And so the way this work began, leading up to apprenticeships, was our agency has been managing the Teach Scholarship Program here in Rhode Island for many years now. And during the pandemic, actually, coincidentally, the Department of Human Services, the Rhode Island Department of Human Services, who manages who funds the Teach Scholarship Program, approached us, for this opportunity to develop and implement an apprenticeship program specifically to support, at that point in time, infant and toddler teachers and teacher assistants. And so the work began some years ago, and now we are on our third or fourth year of the apprenticeship.
And what about you, Amber? How did you come into this?
I have been with RIAC for about a little over 2 years now and have worked within different capacities, but within the registered apprenticeship, I am coaching our level 1 apprentices. I come from previously working within early childhood as a preschool teacher, so it's been really special to be able to get back in the classroom kind of in a different way and working alongside educators, understanding, what they're up against and the system and how everything works. And I'm learning from them just as much as they're learning from me. And so being within this coaching role has been a special opportunity to be able to engage with the field, hone in on best practice, the ITERS tool, and work alongside my team to make sure that we are bolstering the field in some way.
Thank you guys for all the work that you're doing because as a childcare owner, it's really needed for our industry for sure. So can you provide an overview for the folks who are listening who maybe don't even know what we're talking about? What is this registered apprenticeship program? What is this? What does it entail?
Yeah, absolutely. So apprenticeships have been around for many, many years. And we typically see apprenticeships in different trades. We see them in plumbing or electricians or carpentry. And so there has definitely been this interest starting at the federal level to expand apprenticeships to different trades or different fields, and education being one of them. But there's definitely that interest in exploring opportunities to support our early childhood workforce. That is sort of how it began.
And to the best of your knowledge, how many states have an apprenticeship program of some kind? Do you know?
Yeah, so most states either has an early childhood apprenticeship in place or is working on an apprenticeship. I believe the last time I checked, there were 35 states around the country who were either implementing one or in the process of implementation. So there's a lot of work out there focused on that.
What do you think really inspired Rhode Island to launch this program for early childhood educators? Like,
Yes,
what was the
absolutely.
inspiration?
So again, the Rhode Island Department of Human Services was sort of like the one who really spearheaded all of this work, and it has been, we are as RIAC as a vendor of the Department of Human Services, and they certainly have a lot of responsibility. I would say more so because they're working with the littlest ones who have the highest needs at that point. And employers are in a place where overhead costs are really high, particularly in those classrooms where the staff child ratios are at the highest, right? Because again, they're working with the youngest, our babies and our toddlers who are starting to move around, and they have the biggest needs at that point. And so that it definitely has had been a priority of Department of Human Services to provide opportunities to support and ensure that compensation for those individuals continues to happen.
So now you have an infant toddler teacher who has moved up and maybe has their associates now and would be paid a little bit more. Does apprenticeship pay for some of that, increase in their wage?
That's a very good question. So we are working with individuals who really want to work on at the foundational level. We're working with teacher assistants, infant toddler teacher assistants, and we're working with lead teachers as well. And though the individuals that we're working with are folks that have either just began their journey in early childhood education, or folks who have very little experience, particularly around their education within the early childhood field. And so we're working with those individuals to either obtain credentials. So in the case of our teacher assistants, they're working on their CDA credential. And then in the case of our lead teachers, they are engaged in an amazing program at Rhode Island College that is a 16 credit program specifically focused in infant and toddler development. And so the folks that we're working with are not necessarily folks who have a degree in early childhood education. We prefer to work with those individuals who are sort of like, again, at that foundational level. I think what we have done in this state is provide a really great pathway for folks to go from credentialing, like the CDA credential, moving up to different levels, to even seeking a bachelor's degree or a master's degree for those folks who are interested in seeking those higher ed levels. And so, again, with this apprenticeship, we're working at that base level with folks to prepare them for that journey.
Okay, so it's like the stepping stone to then they would turn over and go to teach and then move up and do
Exactly.
So let's talk a little bit about what do you think, and maybe we don't know the answer, but can you walk us through how Rhode Island's program is structured and what makes it unique? Do you feel like it's unique? Do you feel that it's similar?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yes, of course, I do think it's unique. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted Amber in this call, because, every apprenticeship out there requires 5 crucial components. So it has to be employer driven and designed. There has to be that structured on the job learning, what we call it, basically folks who are earning as they're learning, right? There has to be job related education and compensation and those credentials that then are able to carry with them anywhere they go. I think what makes this apprenticeship unique is those additional components that we have embedded in our work. So one of the things that we do very early on, we provide 2 different levels. So we're working with lead teachers and teacher assistants. For everyone who participates in this apprenticeship, we provide a pre-assessment utilizing the environmental rating scale. So specifically the environmental rating scale that looks at their learning environment for infants and toddlers. So it's called the ITERS. And for those who are watching, who are not necessarily very familiar with the environmental rating scales, is they're an opportunity to measure quality within a classroom. It doesn't capture all, but it definitely is a picture, provides a picture, an opportunity for to measure what is happening in a classroom on a given day. And so we utilize the scale to measure what is happening in that classroom when the teacher begins with this apprenticeship and when they finish their apprenticeship. That helps us, helps the teacher, helps the employer determine opportunities for improvement for the teacher. It helps to determine or identify opportunities for the employer to support that teacher. It helps us figure out a baseline or determine where we began with that teacher and then where we ended. Right? Are we seeing improvements in her teaching practices or in her classroom towards the end of her apprenticeship? Compared to when her apprenticeship begins. So it is definitely unique. I don't know of any other state that offers that particular piece. And it also offers the employer an opportunity. We're very much linked with our QRIS, our Quality Rating and Improvement System in our state. And so that also offers the employer an opportunity to help with rating increase opportunities because now you have a more qualified teacher in that classroom, both in practices, but also with credentialing. So that's a very important piece of this apprenticeship, again, that is very unique to us. And then the other piece is the mentoring. And again, that's why, I'm happy to have Amber here because during the pilot phase, we have, and I know we will talk about challenges and opportunities that, to learn. But one of the things that we learned during our pilot phase was the importance and the need to provide really supportive mentorship and coaching. And so that's what we do, particularly with our teacher assistants who are in our participating in our level 1 apprenticeship. And Amber can certainly talk about that in a minute. But that is something definitely unique to us that we provide, utilizing a fairly new coaching mechanism called Learners. And that's it's a coaching and mentoring program that we utilize on the QRIS side, Bright Stars, that has proven to be very valuable to programs, to teachers. That's something that we have implemented on this new sort of phase of our apprenticeship.
One of the first of all, for the listeners out there, I've actually used this program at my center for some of my team members. One of the things I thought was really eye-opening for me that I thought was a benefit was the coaching. And of course your team is great, but the coaching in the classroom from the lead teacher to the TA in the room also benefited not only the TA, but the actual lead, because it gave them an opportunity to really guide and kind of say, this is how we do things, and really be supportive, but also give them an opportunity to coach themselves. And for a lot of lead teachers, that's like a new aspect. Just like Amber had mentioned earlier, like it was very exciting for her to make this change and transition in her career. I feel like it's probably the same for those who worked in the room with the TA. I know that was Robin's experience at our program. She really enjoyed, mentoring. So yeah, it's a great way to give back.
What has been your perspective, Amber, as a coach and mentor?
I think that the coaching visits really offer hands-on opportunities to really put the modules into context in real time, which is really what we want to see with doing these types of opportunities in professional development. It also gives me and the team an opportunity to model the best practices as it relates to the tool and kind of put on my teacher hat and get back to like that mindset where you're in a classroom, you're meeting that teacher where they're at, like you said, scaffolding based on their assessment, based on what you're seeing in real time within their interactions with their children, and really trying to meet them where they're at and model the practice we want to see and relate it to that module. So I think that piece is almost crucial because they can do these online courses, they can do peer learning sessions and connect with their peers, but the learning is happening in the classroom, and it really gives us an opportunity to be in there and see that, and also them an opportunity to showcase their skills and, like you said, collaborate with their co-teacher and share this journey with them. So I think it's crucial to bring the pieces of the learners, the modules, and the peer learning sessions, which we'll talk about all together.
I feel like programs like this, just my perspective from using it, I feel like programs like this, they really do address the low wages and the high turnover. When you are interviewing folks and you say, here are the benefits we have, you can be part of this program. And so people coming in entry level, but even your mid-level people, like you'll have some opportunities to mentor other teachers here at the program, and then even get invested in Eckers or Eckers. My program's been part of Bright Stars forever and ever and a day. And having opportunities to learn more about that tool is very expensive to become a rater reliable, but to have access to the materials and people who can help train and coach you, maybe not to that level, but at least to the level where you have a good understanding of the document, how to use it, and how you implement it in your classroom, I think is important.
Yeah, and I have to clarify too that these assessments are done by Bright Stars assessors. So these are individuals who are going out to classrooms, and so they're getting the feedback that we're providing on this side of the sort of like the work is very much what the QRIS would provide, and in a way it also helps the teacher. It also desensitizes a teacher, because typically, that assessment is nerve-wracking, right? And we've talked to hundreds of teachers about the fact that it is very stressful moment for that teacher if this is her first time or his time getting that type of an observation. And so these opportunities that are not high stakes, as we call them, gives them an opportunity to say, you know what, this wasn't bad. This is it. They're helping. This is an opportunity to help me better myself as an educator.
And with you saying that too, I like to make this little comment to all the childcare owners and directors out there, is the more that you go in your classrooms and do observations, the more comfortable your staff become with having somebody in the room watching them. You get to a point where you become accustomed to that. So this is why it's so important to be really engaged with what's going on on your floor. That's just something I really believe in. So Amber, is there anything you want to add to that Marinol just said, or anything you want to piggyback on there?
Yeah, I think the other piece that I don't know that it makes Rhode Island unique, but it definitely is a benefit to this particular apprenticeship, is the fact that, we've talked about compensation, right? And an expectation for teachers to be compensated see that wage progression for them is definitely a benefit. And I know that sometimes employers question where this compensation is coming from. And so, and this because you understand exactly, during the pilot phase of this program, what you were getting into at that point. And so compensation is expected to be provided by employers. The compensation from the Department of Labor and Training, the way they see compensation is coming from the employer. But the great thing about apprenticeships is that there are supports available from the Department of Human Services, who is the funder of this program, and the Department of Labor and Training. So there are typically funds from both agencies to subsidize these wage increases or wage progression.
I think the biggest picture from my childcare owner lens is, and we're a 4-star program, so where DHS pays you differently based on where you are in your rating. So if you invest in your teachers, then the additional money can also come from your DHS reimbursement. Again, provided you have a lot of DHS children, but that is another place where it can come from, because what you get paid out of 1-star as opposed to a 4-star is significantly different, and you can use some of that money towards paying your teachers better wages.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So that's definitely something that is important for employers to know, that there are the financial supports available to ensure that compensation is happening without affecting the employer's bottom line.
Okay. Amber, can you talk a little bit about what you feel like maybe some of the key lessons that were learned during the apprenticeship program, like the good, the bad, the ugly? What do you think?
I mean, I think with each year of this program, it has shifted and transformed a little bit and been built up. So I think within this phase of our apprenticeship program, really learning from these in-person opportunities, being in the classrooms, conducting peer learning sessions, and just to give you kind of an overview of what that really looks like in practice, we are meeting with these teachers in the level 1 group once a month and discussing the modules over Zoom. And it's really just an opportunity for them to focus on that module. We're focusing on 9 areas of the ITERs. And so each month we'll focus in, engage with one another regarding that module. And we're really just reflecting with them on that practice, how it showed up in their classroom that week. We're facilitating with open-ended questions. So I'm learning every single month. I feel like we're still learning from how to structure these conversations with educators, how to make this information less stagnant on a screen and more relatable to their practice and their day-to-day life. And so when we're talking about encouraging children to communicate, or a great question your child's had, and we ask that question on a Zoom call and we hear folks going back and forth, these are opportunities that we're constantly learning from. So I think having that in conjunction with the coaching visits where they're workshopping goals, I think that in our previous years, we had been a little hands off and had outsourced this coaching role. So I think we're learning a lot from being really in there as a team now, and having me in there and our team just having more insight into the day to day, and also how to incorporate the co-teacher in a different way now that we're involved. So I think at the beginning in the pilot phase, it was run a little differently. And now we're at this point where we're utilizing so many aspects of our organization to bolster this one program. So I think we're going to learn more each month, but just being able to workshop goals to help teachers understand that they can have these tangible monthly goals that they set for themselves, that we're going to help them workshop and dive deeper into their classroom's environment, their own interactions with children, and hopefully help them gain these tangible tools that will then become embedded into their practice. Because that's the goal, like you said. The more folks that come in, the more they're interacting with us and with each other as teachers, as a community in their childcare center, they're going to start to have this become their practice. And it's not just something that they're setting a goal for. It's going to be something they do routinely. And so I think we're going to learn, and I personally am excited to see this group, because this is my first group really coaching with and taking on this new aspect of the role with it. So I think over the years, Marinelle maybe can speak more to the pitfalls and whatnot, but for myself, I think it's supporting and how I can better, we can have them experience that as valuable as me going in or them taking an online professional development course. You know, they're resources to one another. So I think we're still learning how to make that connection over the computer and over Zoom, and everyone has busy schedules and lives. And so we've learned a lot from our learners team on how to really make these opportunities with coaching, peer learning more fruitful, and really picking intentional open-ended questions and trying to make things a little less, you know, like I said, like sterile and, you know, distant. And so I think we're learning from that as well monthly in this work.
Yeah, I think that's great insight.
And I just wanted to add that that is definitely something that we learned from our pilot phase. And you probably remember this, Erica, too, as an employer during the pilot phase, was that I think a big difference from our pilot phase to today is that all of our teachers are working as cohorts. So we're helping them. They're sort of like moving along this apprenticeship as a group. They're learning from each other, and so we're ensuring that they're kind of finishing the work together. It helps them and encourages them to work together and finish the work. Whereas during the pilot phase for our level 1 folks, it was a little bit challenging because everyone was sort of like working on their own professional development. And so we're definitely seeing the difference with those folks this time around.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you for all the work that you ladies are doing. I am going to share the link of the article that was written about the awesome work that you are doing here in Rhode Island. And
Thank
for
you.
all of you that have tuned in, thank you so much for tuning in every day. We love you guys so much. All my friends down in Woonsocket, West Warwick, and of course, all across the country. But I wanted to say hello to our Rhode Island people because I see you all the time in our stats. So if you enjoyed what you heard today and you really could take a moment, just give us a rating or review of our podcast. Your feedback really does help us grow and reach more awesome listeners just like you. So hit that rating button there and leave us a review. Thank you so much. And as always, remember, it's the small details that make a big impact on the success of your childcare business. Have a good day. So I will let you know when we release it.